also this week making arrangements, the Michigan Legislature, for its 100th session, and they gavelled that in, 100th all-time, that is. The 100th Michigan Legislature is officially underway, and a lot of new members out there, and some moving from one chamber to the other, and that has a lot to do with our current guest, who's on the other end of our line right now, and that's State Senator now, Tom Barrett, not Representative Barrett, but Senator Barrett. Good morning.
Good morning, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Welcome to the show. Once again, you've been here many times before, but not in this current role. You were sworn in. Does that, you've in your career, not just in politics, you've raised your right hand a number of times. What does that feel like when you do that? I mean, you've done that.
Yeah, it's an honor to do that. Like as you said, I've done it a number of times. In legislative capacity, but also, through the military too. I probably couldn't tell you an exact count of the number of times I've taken an oath or raised my right hand. But it's an honor each and every time, and it's a commitment each and every time as well. And that's something that I really try to bear in mind. Every time I take on a different opportunity, it comes with unique challenges, and this opportunity in the state senate is no different. It's a tremendous honor, but it's going to be met with quite a few challenges along the way that we know as well.
I've always thought about that too. That if it doesn't mean anything to you, no matter how many times you do it, it's not going to matter. And if it means something to you, every time you do it, it's going to have meaning.
Absolutely.
What about committees? What are you looking at right here?
Yeah, so the Senate Majority Leader, Mike Shirkey, has appointed me to chair the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure at the State Senate, so I'm excited about that opportunity. And I'm also going to be chairing the subcommittee in appropriations for public safety and judiciary. And so that'll be kind of a new role for me. I've not served in an appropriations capacity before, but in the Senate, there are fewer members, of course, and a lot of members kind of work on policy and appropriations committees. So it's a little bit different. So I'm interested in that, that challenge and that opportunity as well. And the rest of the committee assignments, where I'll be a member, not chairing, will be announced probably today or perhaps by Monday. So I'm looking forward to that. I have a lot of different policy committees that I would like to serve on, and of course you can't serve on all of the committees you would like because there's just not enough time and not enough bandwidth to do all of that. But I'll be interested to see kind of where it shakes out for the committees that I'll be assigned to. I'm expecting to serve on probably 5 committees or so. I would anticipate.
Majority Leader Shirkey says no-fault auto insurance reform is going to be a top priority here. We've talked about this before. How will you've gone? I know you've been behind closed doors. You've looked at the agenda. What would make it different this time than every other run at it, which has ended up in, well, quite frankly, failure?
Yeah, and we are trying to look at the past attempts, see what's worked and what hasn't, where we can find consensus, and then try and move forward. And I think the difference this time is that there's obviously new makeup in the legislature. You have new members this time, and we don't know yet where each and every member in the Senate and the House, stands on this particular issue in regards to what their view of reform looks like. And, I think, to me, we need to get away from a little bit from saying, auto insurance reform to really saying we need to make auto insurance affordable. It doesn't matter if you reform it and nobody saves any money. Those are two different things. We need to make car insurance affordable because that is the number one hindrance to families in Michigan today is the lack of affordability of car insurance. The number one issue that the state of Michigan has a direct role in the quality of life for people in our state is dealing with auto insurance and the cost of that. And I will tell you, there's a near riot going on, particularly in our border communities near Ohio, Wisconsin, Indiana. Any representative or senator that you speak to that has a district that borders a neighboring state will tell you that people in their district are going absolutely crazy because everybody in the state feels this effect, but they actually see it so much in such a more pronounced way because their neighbors a couple blocks away are paying a third of the costs that we are for their auto insurance in some instances. So it's absolutely out of control situation. We need reforms in the system, and there are many different ways in which we can do that. And I'm interested in tackling whatever approach we can to get there to actually make it affordable and save people money.
So, in other words, when you go down to a place like Coldwater, or you go down to Hudson or Temperance near Toledo, places like that where they
or up in the Upper Peninsula, bordering Wisconsin, you actually have people. I've heard of instances of this from colleagues of mine who will register their vehicles at, because a lot of families might live on one side of the border or the other. You got an aunt or an uncle on one side and mom and dad on the other side. They'll all register their vehicles at the family residence in Wisconsin, a mile and a half down the road, just so that they can buy Wisconsin insurance, even though they technically and physically live in Michigan, and the car will be, driving them back and forth to work in Michigan. The savings is so dramatic and so severe that the affordability is what drives them and motivates them to register their vehicle at a friend or relative's house a mile down the road.
Newly sworn in state senator here for Michigan, Tom Barrett is our guest. You mentioned border here. We'll broaden that border out to a big issue that's going on. You can't help but notice the government shutdown as we hit, 3 weeks. The president may declare a national emergency. Is that a mistake? Is it a good idea? Do you have anything along those lines that you can comment on?
Well, I mean, I'm not a federal representative or senator, so I can't say, where those conversations have gone with Congress.
Citizen Barrett, then. Okay, Citizen Barrett.
Sure, Citizen Barrett. Well, Citizen Barrett believes in border security. I think that you can't have a country if you don't have borders, right? It's something that actually defines what a country is the borders that surround it and the people within it. So absolutely, without a doubt, we need real border security. That's something that I've long believed in. I actually was, at one point last year, I was close to thinking that I was going to the border as in my capacity in the military as a helicopter pilot. A lot of folks were dispatched down to the border from different states, and I was anticipating that could very likely happen as well. It didn't ultimately come to fruition, but border security is an absolute and fundamental requirement of any country. I've served with a number, and I can't even tell you how many pilots I served with who've done a rotation down at the border, and they say it's just absolute chaos. There's just people, drugs, contraband, you name it, back and forth coming in. To me, the only way you're going to stop that from happening is having some type of real border security. Now, that's up to Congress and the president to figure out how they actually accomplish that. But at the end of the day, you can't have a country if you don't have borders that are defined in some real way.
Well, and as you know, you've worked. I know you've been around people who are in the Coast Guard as well, and they're not under the Pentagon, but they're under Homeland Security, which isn't being fully funded right now. There's a lot. There's a lot to unpack here with this. Doesn't necessarily affect your chamber in state government, but none of this happens in a vacuum, as you well know.
And I will say, Dave, one of the things we are very proud of in state government is we have not had a government shutdown in more than 9 or 10 years now. The entire tenure of Governor Snyder and the entire tenure of time that I've served in the legislature, we passed a state budget that was balanced, that put money into the rainy day fund, put money aside for emergency situations, funded the state's priorities, and was done 3 months before the fiscal year budget would be required to be done. So the fiscal year begins in October, and we would pass a budget in June every single year for the last 8 years. And that's a commitment that we are going to at least legislatively pass a budget well early and on time this year as well.
Oh, I was around for some of the shutdowns. That doesn't mean you haven't had session go well after midnight. It does mean it hasn't been budget related. So
no, those are very different. But if you have a session run after midnight in June to set a budget that takes effect in October, you've done a budget 3 months early.
Yeah, that's that part's
and that's something that we're very proud of.
Tom Barrett, newly minted state senator. We'll see where things go on auto no fault, as he says, not reform, but affordability will be the key word here. Always great to talk to you, get the lay of the land here as things progress out in this 100th legislature for the state of Michigan. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. By the way, you can find him on Twitter now, too. That's he's in the seat where Rick Jones was before, but Jones is on Facebook, Barrett's on Facebook and Twitter. Just noting that for the record. Coming up, we'll visit with new chair of the MSU Board of Trustees, Diane Byram, 1320. Morning Wake Up. This is WILS.